James, can you start off by giving us some facts? What is our footprint, data, facts, please?
There isn't an easy answer to that question. It's Sam Altman, who is the CEO of OpenAI. He tweeted recently, I really enjoyed this tweet. He said, anti-AI people like to make shit up about the impact of AI. Well, Sam, if you told us a bit more about the actual impact of your AI, we wouldn't have to make shit up. I'm not anti-AI either, but my point is, if I don't know how many of you created some of those legally doubtful Ghibli images with ChatGPT recently, or those starter packs. Just based on the latest estimations we've got, making one of those images uses enough energy to charge half a smartphone, at least half a smartphone. So if you put all that together, now I don't want to go too far with that sort of example because it depends a lot on the data center, where you're doing it, etc. But what we are totally sure of is the bigger trends, which are that people are using AI so much right now that data center energy consumption is going to at least double, or if not triple, by the end of this decade. That's one. And the water that these data centers consume is going to triple, or if not quadruple, by the end of the year. So you say that's people that like Sam Altman, and they would say, it's okay, we've got it under control, it's going to become more efficient, we're going to use less energy and time. Well, actually, if you look at the next generation of NVIDIA GPUs that are allowing all this AI, generative AI to happen, the 2027 generation of NVIDIA GPUs will use 5 times more energy per rack than the current generation. So we're not on a good path, and we're even on such a bad path that in America, where most of these data centers are, it's around a third to a quarter of coal energy stations, which were going to be shut down, are now being kept going so that we can keep making Ghibli and starter pack images. Essentially, this is what's happening right now.
Okay, so thank you for setting the scene for us there, Axelle. Across to you. We've heard a little bit about the impact. Clearly, we're not going in the right direction. But just out there with regards to the title of this session, what's the most impactful thing then that we can do to reduce our AI footprint?
Well, I'll complete what you've just said about Sam. So Sam, CEO of OpenAI, if you're listening to us, please give us the figures. And I think the most impactful thing we could start with is measuring, because the reality is we can share some facts and figures, but we do not have access to the environmental information from the cloud providers. When they train the large models that then they put on their platform that being used by developers, we do not have the carbon impact of that training. To the extent that we altogether do not realize now the reality of what's behind AI in terms of environmental impact.
Energy, water are direct effects. Indirect effects are, for example, Microsoft has enabled ExxonMobil and Chevron to find more petrol with AI. This means that they those 2 projects alone will generate 3 to 4 times more emissions than Microsoft itself. So it's not just indirect emissions, it's enabled emissions. What can you do at your level? Well, another way you're being pushed into using, generating these rebound effects is when in Microsoft Office or in WhatsApp, when it says, would you like to write this message with AI? Well, one of the best things you can do is just go, no, write it yourself, because that is just that's not necessary impact. Then the other way to mitigate is, so if you've established, do I really need AI? Well, if you do, maybe you can use a kind of AI, like symbolic AI, which can use thousands of times less emissions to do the same thing. You can also do things like try and use smaller models. So the data center example is very good, because if you're using a European cloud provider whose data centers in Europe, they're, like Axelle was saying, because of the better energy mix, you'll be generating less emissions than in the States or even in Germany, so that's great. But The real problem with AI and with what I was hinting at before is that we're in this sort of bigger is better race. It was mentioned on the previous panel. The next models, the next processes, everything has to be bigger, 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 better. Stargate is a 500 billion project, which is just going to be ridiculously huge. The fact is that smaller models can do just as good a job as bigger models. So companies like Sopra Steria need to be encouraging their clients to be using less impactful models and not always going for bigger, 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 and bigger, faster, stronger.
So being very conscious about what we're doing today is one way in which we can mitigate.